Hello, welcome to the SOF training on meeting migration service and regionally hosted meetings. My name is Agus Rahman and I have been delivering several SOF trainings in the past. And in this opportunity, I would like to introduce a new team member in the Skype customer experience and deployment team, Matthew Wade. He is a senior customer engineering architect based out of Michigan, and he will be co-delivering this training with me. If you have been watching the SOF training series thus far, I would expect for you to be familiar with SOF already. For those joining for the first time, you can get further information about SOF from skypeoperationframework.com. SOF is a living framework, and we continue to work on updating the assets and delivering new offers. Your feedback drives the updates to SOF, and please use our feedback channels listed here to share your thoughts and ideas. We also have the SOF community as part of developing the multifaceted approach to SOF. We would love to hear from you on how you are applying SOF to your projects and share lessons learned from the field. This is December 2016 version of this training. Due to the ever-changing nature of Skype for Business Online and SOF, I would like to point out that things may have changed upon watching this training. For most recent up-to-date trainings, go to skypeoperationframework.com/academy. Let's get started with the SOF training on meeting migration service and regionally hosted meetings. What is Meeting Migration Service, or MMS, and what is Regionally Hosted Meetings, or RHM? MMS is a service that runs in the background to automatically update users' meetings when an administrator moves the meeting organizer from on-premises to online, or when the meeting organizer is enabled for cloud PSTN conferencing. The new service eliminates the need to run the meeting migration tool that we used in the past to update existing meetings upon migrating users to Skype for Business Online. Aside from covering those scenarios, MMS will kick in when users are moved to another region, and this is where I will introduce RHM. With RHM, users in a single tenant can be spread across multiple data centers in different regions. This is to allow meetings to be hosted in the data center that is closer to the user. By being closer to the data center, network latency will be reduced and meeting experience will be improved. The goal of this training is not to flesh out the technical details of MMS and RHM. For the technical training on MMS and RHM, I would recommend you to look at the Skype Academy technical readiness contents on MMS and RHM. The goal of this training is for you to understand the updates that have been made to SOF to incorporate MMS and RHM. That includes which assets that have been updated and which asset that has been introduced. This training is about understanding when MMS and RHM will be applicable and why they are important for the success of your deployment or project. We will touch a little bit on how meetings are migrated and all the work required to ensure meetings continue to work upon migration with MMS. For RHM, this training will provide you a level of understanding on how RHM will improve meeting experience. To deliver the updated SOF that incorporates MMS and RHM, We expect for you to have thorough understanding of SOF, all the phases, stages, activities, and assets. Training for SOF is available via Skype Academy should you need to catch up. As we don't deliver the technical readiness content on MMS and RHM here, we expect for you to have gone through the technical readiness contents prior to delivering SOF with the updates that incorporate MMS and RHM. So what's new in SOF version 2.4? We have gone through the existing assets and updated all of the assets listed here from plan phase to deliver phase to incorporate both MMS and RHM. Aside from updating the workshop decks, the updates include updating the documents templates to incorporate both MMS and RHM so that you can have a productive start from the get-go. This training will discuss the updated assets marked in bold and talk about the new regionally hosted meetings playbook. With that, I would like to turn this over to Matt to talk about SOF updates on MMS.
Thank you, Agus. I will walk you through the changes we made to the SOF assets, specifically related to the meeting migration service. While we did many small changes, I will only focus on those updates where new content was created specifically for MMS. We will begin our MMS conversation, starting with Envision and then moving into design. We want to begin the MMS conversation with the team very early on in the project lifecycle. We will get our first introduction to MMS starting here in the Envisioning workshop. This slide is also present in the architecture decks, as audience participation may differ between workshops. The most important item to take away from this conversation is to understand that MMS is an online service that runs in the background and is not a tool that can be ran manually. It will automatically update the user's Skype meetings and deliver meeting invites or updates to all meeting participants. It is designed to take the place of the meeting migration tool for users hosted in Exchange Online. The service is automatically enabled for a tenant and can either be enabled or disabled. The service can also be configured to ignore changes made to the user's dial-in conference settings. We will talk briefly about why we would want to do this later on. Since MMS runs only in the given 4 scenarios, it is very important for the team to become familiar with them early on. This is the only new slide added to the Envisioning workshop. This slide is designed to help get the conversation about MMS started early. For additional information and guidance, please review the speaker notes accompanying each slide in the workshop. Here we will take the conversation from envisioning and into design. We want to start with the conversation noting the prerequisites required for MMS. The most important prerequisite is to note that the user's mailbox must be homed in Exchange Online. If the mailbox is not in Exchange Online, then we must fall back to the meeting migration tool or manually reschedule the meetings individually. Since there are limitations around MMS, we will also want to take a moment to address them. The first of these limitations is concerned with attachments. If the user hasn't added any attachments to the meeting, they will be lost when MMS runs, and the user must re-add them to each scheduled meeting. The second limitation focuses on where MMS modifies the meeting. Since MMS modifies the meeting between the dotted lines, any changes made to the meeting invite by the user or a third party in this area will be lost. And finally, for MMS to run a scheduled meeting, it must have been created using the Skype add-in for Outlook or Outlook web app. Meetings not created using these tools will not be modified by either MMS or MMT and must be rescheduled manually. Our next area to address is impact. Since MMS is a service and will run regardless if one user is migrated or 1,000, it will be important to understand the potential impact the service will have on your organization. The primary focus area for impact is not the user being migrated, but rather the participant that the user has invited to their meetings. The more meetings that are migrated, the more participants are affected. We want to make sure that the project team is aware of the potential volume of meeting updates that MMS can generate during a migration event. Using the formula where N, equals the number of users to be migrated, M equals number of the meetings per user, and Z equals the number of invitees per M, we can extrapolate that migrating 1,000 users will result in approximately 25,000 meeting updates being sent per organization. An important note here is that these meeting updates will not count against your organization's daily exchange send limits. Because of the potential impact the service can have, notifying users will be important to reduce the initial volume of calls to the help desk after a migration event has occurred. Informing your help desk will increase their awareness, which in turn will help the staff quickly triage any users that do happen to call in. As we now understand the impact, we will move on to user experience. Because MMS has a different experience for the organizer and invitee, it is important for the project team to be aware of these differences. For the organizer, we will want to note that only non-expired Skype meetings will be updated. These updates are transparently sent to all meeting participants. The organizer will receive accept, decline, and tentative meeting responses from those updates. And finally, the organizer will note that there will be no meeting updates in their set items folder. For the invitee, if they have previously accepted or tentatively accepted the meeting, they will receive an update with a no response required, and the meeting will automatically be updated in their calendar. If the invitee has declined the original meeting invite, they will receive a new meeting invite which they will have to decline again. Again, we will want to stress the team that the invitee could potentially receive a large amount of new meeting updates and invites if a large number of users are migrated or modified. Now that the team has a basic understanding of MMS's capabilities, requirements, limitations, impact, and user experience, we can now move on into a couple of recommended practices. If the team is also managing a mailbox migration from Exchange on-premises to Exchange online, we want the mailbox migration to happen first so that we can take advantage of MMS. As we previously discussed, the user must be homed in Exchange Online for MMS to run. If you're also modifying the dial-in conferencing settings for the user, then you will want to make those changes first before running the move CS user command to migrate the user online. Making this change first will ensure that MMS only runs once for each user migrated. Making the change to the user's dial-in conferencing settings after moving them online will result in MMS running again and meeting updates being delivered twice. If users are already in Skype for Business Online and you are migrating from a third-party audio conferencing provider solution, then you may want to disable MMS from triggering for any dial-in conferencing changes. Disabling MMS for dial-in conferencing updates will allow the administrator to pre-assign the Microsoft PSTN conferencing license without affecting the user's meetings. As some third-party conferencing solutions are managed outside of the Skype for Business Administration Center, it may be beneficial to prevent MMS from prematurely modifying the user's meetings. When the team is ready, MMS can be re-enabled and will automatically run one of the MMS trigger scenarios. If you do not want to wait until this occurs, then the user can run the meeting migration tool. As we wrap up the MMS conversation, it's an important concept to take away is that MMS should be considered as the default choice for meeting migrations. Only fall back to MMT or manual rescheduling when the MMS scenario cannot be met, or there are one or more specific scenarios that will require the use of another option. It may also be perfectly reasonable for the team to leverage more than one choice and use a combination of methods. Running MMT against a user after MMS will not resend updates for those meetings already updated. So what are the decisions that need to come out of these workshops? During the envisioning workshop, we are just looking to introduce the team to the options available for meeting migrations. Ensure that the team is fully aware of all three options available. For the architecture workshops, we now want to understand any blockers that exist that prevent us from using MMS. We also want to identify if MMT will be required. Since MMT must be run locally by the user, we need to ensure that the proper solution is in place to 1. Educate the user on the use of the tool, and 2. Deliver the tool to the workstation. And finally, do we need to disable MMS for dial-in conferencing? Make sure the team understands under what condition or conditions we would disable dial-in conferencing support, as well as how we would modify meetings after re-enabling dial-in conferencing support. In conclusion, always use MMS when possible. If MMS cannot be used, make sure to understand what blockers exist that prevent MMS from being used, and what can potentially be done to remove those blockers. In certain migration scenarios, MMT or manually rescheduling meeting may still be required. Make sure to address the potential impact MMS may have to the organization. While the organizer may notice very little during the migration, the participant of the organizer's meetings are going to have a different experience. Educating the users is going to be important to minimizing the impact to your help desk. Keeping the help desk aware of migration schedules and MMS impact will also help the staff triage incoming calls quickly and efficiently. And finally, while we covered a lot of materials around planning for MMS, technical training can be found here at https://aka.ms/sa-mms. Take the time to familiarize yourself with technical training and content provided. Thank you. I will now give the mic back to Agus, who is going to talk to you about regionally hosted meetings.
Thank you, Matt. Let's talk about SOF updates on regionally hosted meetings, or RHM. Let's get a level set of understanding about RHM. By allowing users in the same tenant to be spread across multiple data centers in multiple regions, RHM allows meetings to be hosted in the same region as the meeting organizer. By being closer to the users, meeting experience will be improved as network latency is reduced. With the placement of users, the meeting organizer, the presenter, and also the attendees to the region closer to them, time spent on the public internet will be reduced, and you will gain predictable performance for all meeting attendees. The diagram here highlights the data center locations where users can be placed when implementing RHM. For users outside of the bubble, they will need to be placed on the data center which is closer to their location. When working through an engagement using SOF, we have updated the discovery questionnaire to assist you to identify requirements for RHM. Some questions in the discovery questionnaire, as highlighted on the right side here, will provide you with key signals as to the possibility of requirements for RHM. The granular questions on user locations and look how it is currently very specific to where users can be placed when implementing RHM will provide the first indication whether RHM is required or not. The next question around internet breakout or egress point will identify whether the organization is actually ready to support RHM implementation, or whether there will be an uphill battle to get to the point when RHM can provide a benefit to the organization. The question around the intent to implement RHM is to identify whether the organization is aware of the feature and excited about that. If the response is no, but the leading indicators from the first two questions I highlighted here indicate otherwise, then you will know what to discuss further in the Envisioning High-Level Architecture workshop or the subsequent detailed design workshops. To facilitate the decision-making on RHM, the Envisioning Architecture workshop deck has a slide about RHM that has been added to allow you to discuss RHM in the conversation. Remember, Envisioning Architecture workshop is about getting executive acceptance and approval to implement certain capabilities, and it is intentional not to include the technical rundown of RHM in this deck. If there is a need to deliberate further about the technical details on RHM, I would recommend you, as the workshop facilitator, to use the technical readiness content on RHM as backup deck. Recognizing the fact that while users are spread across the world, some multinational companies actually implemented an internet egress strategy that will not support RHM implementation. This is where the single or centralized internet egress is implemented for the whole company. For such company, they need to change their internet egress implementation to multiple or regionalized or in-country internet egress for them to be able to benefit from RHM. To help facilitate that discussion and decide what to do now or in the future, please use the RHM Strategy Decision Matrix slide. When you've come to the point of discussing the technical details of RHM implementation, SOF has been updated to include additional technical details, be that the requirements or considerations for RHM implementation. In the detailed design workshop decks, the assets are now highlighting the requirements and considerations for RHM, such as tenant level configuration required to enable RHM, specifying the available data locations or ADLs for the tenant and preferred data locations or PDLs for the users, and network requirements for RHM implementation, covering the regionalized DNS and proxy, and in-region or in-country routing to Internet or Office 365 specifically. You will also need to work on the regionally hosted meeting playbook to complete the design stage of plan phase. And this playbook will serve as a reference document for you to complete the site rollout site questionnaire document in the deliver phase. The RHM playbook is used to capture site-level details of user distribution. The primary intent of this playbook is to list down the pairing of sites and preferred data locations, or PDLs. So in this playbook, you will capture the information about the sites where users are located, preferably using existing site codes or create your own, with some additional details such as region, city, and country. You will also capture the information regarding internet egress or breakout for each site, whether internet egress is available or not, and if not, which site is used for internet egress. For each site with internet egress, you will then need to decide and pick and choose the preferred data location or PDL. And for those sites without internet egress, pick and choose the same preferred data location or PDL as the site providing internet egress. Upon completion of RHM playbook and the engagement is moving along to deliver phase, you will use the RHM playbook to complete the site rollout site questionnaire, especially the User tab. In the User tab, a new column has been added to list down the preferred data location. And please ensure the PDL matches the site code defined previously in the RHM playbook. Why is this important? The site rollout site questionnaire will produce the CSV file that helps bulk enablement of users in the subsequent stage using the updated user enablement script that we provide as part of SOF. By having the PDL populated, the CSV will have the PDL information and users will be enabled or migrated to the preferred data location upon executing the deployment script. When it comes down to configuring and implementing RHM, we have updated the deployment guidance checklist to include a task to track the backend enablement of RHM. This task includes the commands that are required to be executed to configure RHM. In the site rollout and migration playbook, there is a task now to track the verification of the CSV file that we created using the site rollout site questionnaire to ensure the PDL information is included. Please note that this task is optional since RHM may not be applicable to your engagement or project. And the enablement script, as I mentioned previously, has been updated to allow you to bulk enable or migrate users and assign PDLs based on the input file or CSV generated by the site rollout site questionnaire. To sum up, the updated SOF includes the required contents you need to navigate the organization's journey with RHM. Using the key information in the discovery questionnaire, you should be able to identify early on whether RHM is required or supports the need of the organization. And again, RHM is not for every company and even not for all multinational companies, especially when their internet egress or breakout implementation does not support RHM. For that, use the RHM Strategy Decision Matrix to confirm strategy direction and decision of the organization that you're working with. During the technical workshop, confirm the ability for the organization to meet technical requirements for RHM implementation, especially the network requirements. Use your technical understanding of RHM that you obtained from Skype Academy Technical Readiness contents on RHM to support you in the detailed design workshop. Once all of the infrastructure requirements are in place or detailed design has been established, use the RHM playbook to capture the pairings of sites and Skype for Business Online preferred data locations and feed that information to the site rollout site questionnaire. This way, the bulk enablement or migration input file or CSV will include the PDL information to support RHM implementation right off the bat. Last but not least, use the deployment checklist to track the tenant level configuration of RHM. With all of the updates we are making to SOF, it will now help you navigate the organization's journey with RHM. Let's sum up the entire contents of this training. With this training, we expect that you will now understand the updates that have been made to SOF to incorporate the planning and implementation of MMS and RHM. And you should by now able to identify which assets that have been updated or which asset that has been added and know which to use at which stage of SOF. As we go through the details about MMS and RHM in relation to how you will deliver an engagement using SOF, you should now be able to understand when MMS and RHM will be applicable to a deployment from the technical requirements and also understand whether organizational requirements can be met by MMS and RHM. You should also now have some details on how MMS and RHM can be configured. For example, of when and how to leverage MMS based on specific scenarios. And for RHM, you should now be able to understand what to configure and to enable to implement RHM at the tenant level and user level. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Before we go, please find here the list of additional resources on SOF. Stay up to date with SOF by visiting our blog. Remember, your feedback is important to us, so please use our feedback channels. For additional trainings on Skype for Business and SOF, visit our Skype Academy page. And please engage us and others through the SOF community. Thank you very much.